Hello, this is a video that I created for my United States Christian Heritage class, and this video focuses on two major areas of Anthony Benezet's life. Anthony Benezet was a Huguenot who fled from France and with his family when he was very young, and at the age of 18 he ended up in Philadelphia and joined the Quaker movement. And so really this video is just focusing on how his Quaker beliefs impacted the decisions and the fights that he took up in his life. And so if you are looking to do further research on Anthony Benezet, most of my sources were journal articles as well as just looking at his own works and forming connections that show his Quaker beliefs coming out in his life. And I'll have posted those journal articles and books and the works that I used to analyze this. So thank you, and I hope you enjoy. According to Bryken's bibliography, Anthony Benezet was born in St. Quentin, France in 1713. His parents, Jean and Judith, were a wealthier couple but underwent persecution for their faith. As Huguenots, their livelihood came under scrutiny and infliction after the revocation of the Edict of Nantes in 1685. As a result of the physical persecution that many of their family members underwent, the Benezets chose to keep their faith silent. In fact, Anthony's parents had him baptized in the Catholic Church to continue the facade. In 1715, Anthony's father decided to leave everything behind except his family and flee from France. Anthony Benezet's papers refer to the legend that while fleeing to Rotterdam, they came across a military outpost. The soldiers standing guard refused to let them pass, but the Benezet's escort responded by showing his hands. In one hand, he held a gun, and in the other, a pouch of money, and stated, "Take your choice. This is a worthy family fleeing from persecution, and they shall pass." After living in Rotterdam for 6 months, they eventually settled in London and lived there until 1731, when they moved to Philadelphia and joined the Society of Friends, also known as the Quaker. Anthony Benezet applied his Quaker beliefs of equality to his transatlantic writings against slavery and to his work in education by becoming a self-sacrificing and charitable teacher. Pennsylvania was of course founded by William Penn and was designed to promote religious toleration. In an environment of toleration, the Quaker denomination was able to move beyond the past decades they had spent in jails in England and into a newfound successful freedom. George Fox, a prominent Quaker, summarized their beliefs as believing there is a, quote, God in every man, which allowed the inner light to shine in human beings. This light allowed men to purge themselves of worldly sins. Many of them recognized that the ability for God to be in men made men and women, despite their race, equal before God and in His creation. According to Roger Bruns, author of A Quaker's Anti-Slavery Crusade, another aspect of their faith that supported their ideals of equality was their non-belief in original sin. They do not believe that you are born sinful, rather you are sinful because you are exposed to the sinful world and sin throughout your life. Since no one is born sinful, skin color does not equate to a mark of more or less sin. Their similar struggle to break from oppression in England would give the movement their sympathies, but their theological beliefs in equality would lay the foundation in the Quaker fight towards abolition. In and beyond Philadelphia, Anthony Benezet, with Quaker convictions, became a champion of abolition. Beginning in the late 1750s, Benezet began publishing pamphlets and tracts at his own expense. Although Benezet was not the first person to speak and write publicly against slavery, his foundation and arguments took a unique approach. According to Bruns's Anthony Benezet's assertion of Negro equality, many abolitionists believe slavery should be abolished, but on moral grounds, not racial equality. Unfortunately, many still devoted themselves to the belief that blacks were inferior to whites. Some attributed black inferiority to their sinful nature, while others blamed it on the culture and in the environment of their homeland. Benezet, however, chooses to fight slavery not only on the foundation of morality, but equality. In a short account of the part of Africa inhabited by Negroes, he wrote that Africans are generally sensible and humane and sociable, that their capacity is as good and as capable of improvement as that of white people. In addition, he spoke with French and Dutch travelers and summarized that West Africans were noble, and while perhaps inclined toward idolatry, they are industrious and intelligent. With fellow Quaker John Woolman, he convinced the Quakers in Philadelphia to take an official position against slavery, making them the first denomination to do so. In 1775, Benezet held the first Pennsylvania Abolition Society meeting and helped with petitions that fought against the 1780 Gradual Emancipation Act that would have returned some of the slaves back to slavery. In 1776, Philadelphia accepted Benezet's argument that slavery was an intolerable sin against God and issued a declaration excommunicating any Quaker that continued to hold slaves. Toward the end of his life, his communications with John Wesley and Granville Sharp created for him transatlantic influence. Both men were enamored by his arguments and distributed his works throughout England. Sharp took the liberty of giving Benezet's writings to Lord Mansfield, the Lord Chief Justice of England. His writings influenced Lord Mansfield to rule in favor of undermining slavery in both the Somerset and Zong court cases. In 1783, he wrote to Queen Charlotte to encourage her to consider the plight of the enslaved and the, quote, divine displeasure that may occur to the nation that promotes such injustice. In addition, his works and the manner in which he approached abolition on the basis of equality were appealing to Thomas Clarkson, a well-known abolitionist in the same circles as Wilberforce. Clarkson would use Benezet's arguments throughout his lifetime to bring the end of the slave trade. Beyond an influential writer, Benezet was a successful and dedicated author. After some failures in business, he began teaching, and after a few years offered his instructional services to young slave children after hours at his own expense. In addition, he began a girls' school, bringing again into action his desire to promote equality not only among races, but also among sexes. He relentlessly gave of himself and his time. According to his papers, he even tutored a young deaf girl for 2 years and designed a special program for her since she was so far behind in her education. He believed that education was important for everyone, but since the government was yet to be convinced, he focused on winning over the Quakers. He desired Quakers from all stations of life to receive an education and was named the chairman of a Quaker committee considering public education. In 1773, Benezet established a school for free black children and some enslaved black children when there were empty desks. Within 6 years, Benezet had personally taught over 250 children, including later founder of the African Methodist Episcopal Church, Richard Allen, and the first African-American ordained as a priest, Absalom Jones. For some people, their achievements are only recognized within their own lifetime, while for others they are celebrated posthumously. But in Benezet's case, it was both. Anthony Benezet died on May 3, 1784, and was buried, as he wished, in an unmarked grave. However, his work and ideals were not buried with him. During the 19th century, Quakers would continue to fight against slavery in both England and the United States. Benezet's arguments were carried through the debates in Parliament to end the slave trade and were found amongst many abolitionists during the Civil War. In addition, Quakers continued to stress the importance of education and equality, even participating in the women's suffrage movement. In fact, a well-known women's advocate in the suffrage movement was Lucretia Mott, who was also a Quaker. There are many more aspects of Benezet's life, such as his work with Native Americans and Acadians, but his dedication and writings to the abolitionist movement and his servant attitude in the realm of education transcended generations and continents and eventually changed the world.